welcome to the Lisa at the Edge podcast. I'm so glad that you could join me.
Thank you for having me. Really excited to be here today.
Awesome. So we've got you on today mainly to talk about how you got into tech, because that is, you described it as a squiggly line.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely the squiggliest line that I have heard so far. So really looking forward to you sharing more about that. And then I was wondering if we could talk a little bit about making the shift from traditional sysadmin operation type role to the cloud, and a bit about your journey there, because I think that'd be really interesting for the listeners to hear. And then if we could touch a little bit on COVID-19, because it's been a while since I've discussed it on the podcast.
Absolutely.
And it's definitely still relevant. Does that sound like a plan?
That'd be awesome. That'd be really good.
Cool. So April, do you want to go ahead and just give us a little bit of an intro to yourself?
Sure. My name is April Edwards. I work for Microsoft. My official title is Senior Software Engineer. Basically means I go and build with customers. I tend to work with the kind of top 400 customers in the world on some of their major big projects and transition them to the cloud. So I'm very much dev heavy at this point in my career, 100% cloud focused. But I have a background of working in data center transformation, working for various partners in the UK and in the US. So I've kind of transitioned from that on-premise environment, everything in the data center stack, literally from the edge into the applications, and then moving into more a dev-heavy role now here at Microsoft.
Amazing. Okay, cool. And we'll get more into that later on. So when we had our prep call for this podcast, I think I was just completely blown away about your story and how you got into tech. And that's something that I am really enjoying sharing on the podcast, and I know people are enjoying listening to, because I think it's showing the diverse number of ways that people come into tech, and also helping people understand that it's really never too late or too much of a shift to just follow your dreams, basically. And I think your story particularly shows that. I think we've got from basketball and high schools to computer science to the Marine Corps and medical school, and there's a whole journey. So I wonder if we could let's just start right at the beginning, okay? Let's just start at the beginning and let's walk this through, because I love this story.
All right.
Let's talk at high school. What were you thinking about in high school? Where did you think you wanted to go? Let's start there.
So just to clarify for all the listeners, I'm UK based. I've been in the UK for about 7.5 years now. But I grew up in the US. So my parents were divorced. I grew up in Washington, D.C., and then my dad moved to Louisville, Kentucky. So that was just a major cultural shift. If anyone's ever seen the movie, any of the movies where people are in the South with funny accents, that's how I describe Louisville, Kentucky to most people. Well, they don't like to be considered the South. So it was a massive cultural shift in my life. And I was always a very athletic child. My parents were never really set me boundaries like, you're a girl, you can't do this. So I was really fortunate. So I always played sports. I played pretty much every sport growing up. I was on the boys wrestling team. I played flag football. I played ice hockey and all the sports. And I actually moved in with my dad into Louisville to go to school for a basketball scholarship. Nice. I had kind of the best advantage at that point to go to Eastern High School in Louisville, Kentucky. And my dad, like any parent, super proud, was like, great, my daughter's going to earn a full ride to university. Yeah. It's going to be amazing. And I was going into my freshman year. So that is your first year of high school. And I was already getting recruited by college basketball coaches to go and play. I was playing in summer camps and go into my freshman year. And I was there to play basketball and to study. I was a really, really good student, but I just went to school. I kind of was good at every topic and every subject, pretty much an A, slight B student. And my first year into the school, it was a computer science high school. So in Louisville, all the schools have magnets. So you might go to a school that might be for performing arts, or my school was for computer arts and sciences. And I went to the school because of basketball, and it was close to my dad's house. So kind of like here in the UK, where you live in that area where you're eligible to go to that school.
Yeah.
So really similar to that. So the whole goal was to get a basketball scholarship. And my first year in, my dad, sat me down with the school counselor or the principal, whoever it was, and was like, what classes does your daughter want to take? And because I came from a different school, they have to kind of shift your levels. Okay. So they put me into my classes, and they said, oh, we have this computer class where they build computers. And my dad goes, no, she doesn't build computers. She's not interested. Why would you build computers? And my dad is not technical, supportive, but not technical, does not get technology at all. Yeah. So I went through my first year of school. and I was bored. I had to take a basic computer class, which was like learning to type.
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't remember what else we did. It wasn't very interesting.
It wasn't that interesting. Okay.
No. And when I'm not interested in something, I get bored.
Yeah.
So I got in trouble for cutting class, and the computer literally, the teacher tied a computer monitor to my wrist and made me run around the school with it as punishment. Okay. So my dad got the hint. Going into my second year, he goes, what class do you want to take? I was like, I'm going to take that computer building course. And that is basically an A+ certification course. So it's learning your technical side of computers, how they work, building machines and all that. So my high school was really cool because you could take that A+ certification for free. That's a certification in the US can cost anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 just to get that, because you have to go through the schooling, the cert. So I was getting a free education and free certification. So I got my certification, went through the rest of my high school years, did not follow through with basketball, much to my father's dismay. I picked up ice hockey and I played football, AKA soccer, which was not going to get me a college scholarship. So I just kind of continued on taking my classes, and I graduated with honors. Fantastic. And in the US, you don't go to university for a computer science degree. Computer science was kind of like a management track and no one really did it. So I had to find my actual career path, and it was expected of me to go to university. Like it was a high expectation in my family. Not everyone in my family is going to university, but
Yeah.
I was smart. I had all the things, and the family pressure was there. So I chose my school. I went to Purdue University, which is a math and science engineering school. So really great school. Went there, and I had to pick a major. And I started off, again, you want to talk about a curvy line, pre-pharmacy, then kind of like went into applied mathematics. And then I decided, I want to become a doctor. So I graduated finally after 6 years of university. Long story. I had twice the amount of credits I needed to graduate, but and I kind of did IT stuff on the side. And by the time I graduated, I was doing part-time IT work. I actually worked for, we call it the Geek Squad. In the US, there's a company called Best Buy. It's an electronics store. It's very much like Curry's.
Yes.
And they have like a corner where they do PC help, and they call it the Geek Squad. So I worked on that, and it was just to pay the bills during university. I had no money at all. So I did that, and then graduated and moved to Boston, Massachusetts. And I was pursuing my master's degree at Tufts University to become a doctor. I had already been doing research in labs. I had published papers. I was ready to be a trauma surgeon. Like I was really focused on that. Then I was at the age of 24, got a job at Tufts University working their IT department. I thought, screw it. Like, what else do I have to lose? I'd applied for all these research positions and didn't get it. And Boston's wicked competitive. So lived in Boston for a bit, worked at Tufts University in their IT department. And they actually aligned me to the science department. So I was like, oh, this is a great fit. And part of working at Tufts is you get a free master's, you get free tuition. So I was working towards my master's degree. And because I wasn't a straight A student in university, I need to work really, really hard to get into medical school. So I worked really hard. I was kind of burning the candle from both ends, working in the IT department, studying for my master's. And then I was also married at the time. I got married fairly young. And I had paid off all my debt one day. I just, not many 24-year-olds can say that. I had a really fun job. I worked around great people. I was studying really hard, but I was also surrounded by grad students that were absolutely miserable. Like they're all working on their PhDs and they're just complaining. They're working long hours in the lab. And as much as I loved medicine, I kind of sat there and had a soul searching moment. And that was really, really tough. And so I decided to nix going to be a doctor. Now, the other side of this coin is while I was in university, I joined the officer program for the Marine Corps. So I spent my university years training to be a Marine officer. And then I turned down a flight contract to keep pursuing this medical degree. So I kind of like went off in about 4 different directions.
Yeah.
Still staying technical, still doing stuff. I mean, but it wasn't a job. It wasn't a career path. So I really wanted to be a Marine. And when I was looking at this medical school option, I was like, well, I could fund it by going back into the military. Now the Marines don't fund medical school. You have to go into the Navy or the Army. Or potentially the Air Force, but I was very, very set on maintaining being a Marine. I didn't want to transfer. There's a bit of honor that goes with being a Marine, and I just didn't want to let go of that. So 24 years old, paid off all my debt. I was unhappily married, But I said, you know what? I want to make my own life decisions. And this whole IT thing is going really well. Like I fit in. I'm geeky and nerdy and everyone accepts me. I had a great group of people around me. And those people I met at that time, I'm still friends with today. Like we still chat on Facebook. One of my best friends, Scott, flies over to the UK and I fly to Boston. We hang out all the time. Like that experience of just solid amount of people having fun and then realizing, I can't afford medical school and having
Yeah.
$300,000 worth of debt. I'm going to stay in IT. Like my quality of life was so, so good. So I did. I stayed in IT. I stayed in Boston for a bit. I worked through Tufts University and then kind of worked into other jobs. I moved up into kind of larger roles every few years. So when you look at my resume or my CV, it's a bit like every 2-3 years, there's a shuffle to another company because I outgrew my role and I wanted more. And I've kept wanting more each and every time. So worked for an MSP in Boston. Everything was great. Now I'm also a massive skier, hence the giant ski poster behind me. There's even a photo in this room of me like doing like, tricks in the air off ski jumps. Like skiing's one of my favorite passions. And I got a job offer to move out to Colorado and I went to go work for Vail Resorts, and Vail Resorts needed me to lead the IT infrastructure for their retail division. So if you ever go skiing actually they own a lot of resorts in Europe now, but kind of in Colorado, any of their resorts, all those retail stores you see, Vail owns that property. And we manage like the point of sale systems and the IT for that. So I was running a large IT infrastructure. My career was like just going up and up and up. And I got to be a ski bum for a living. Like that was really cool.
That sounds like the dream, to be fair.
Yeah. So I just picked up everything from Boston and then moved to Colorado and did my job. And I skied a lot. I got to go mountain biking, got to be outside. It was amazing. And that was phenomenal. That was really phenomenal. But I wasn't happy with my role. I left all my friends in Boston. I left that life. I was already divorced by this point as well. So I was on my own. But technology and my career kind of brought me to that experience, which I don't regret. And I was working at that role, and probably about 9 months in, I just said, this isn't for me. What do I do? What's my plan B? And I started my own consulting business. And I thought, I don't know where this is going to go, but I'm going to start my own consulting business. I'm feeling a bit idle, at a loose end. And I actually had friends living in Denver that were working for a company here in the UK. And they needed some IT help. And I was like, I'm in, right?
Yeah.
Easy. So I actually got made redundant a year on the day that I joined that company. I had issues with my manager and the whole kind of chain of command in that organization. And they were also shifting the organization. So they kind of said to me, like, we're merging, you can either do this or that. And pretty much the options were like not really good and not career boosting. So it came at the right time. I sold everything I owned. So I'd already moved, like 13 months prior from Boston to Colorado, sold everything. I had my dog, who's like my absolute best friend, put him in the car, booked a plane ticket for both of us, drove to Boston, Massachusetts, sold my car, stayed at a friend's house, got my dog in a kennel, and shipped him over to the UK.
Wow.
With 2 suitcases. Yeah. So it was me, the dog, 2 suitcases, and a bike, basically. And that was really hard. That was probably the toughest thing I've ever done in my life. But IT enabled me to do that. My parents were concerned. They were like, what are you doing? Like, you do lots of crazy things, April, but this one tops it, right?
Yeah.
So new country, new people, and I just left my life. So I came over consulting for a few months and decided to stay. Got picked up by a UK-based company. And I've then worked through different MSPs here in the UK and then worked into Microsoft. So it has been like this career of, I'm going to be a basketball superstar, to I'm going to go to university with a degree. I'm going to go join the Marine Corps. No, I'm going to be a doctor. And like, it's literally shot off and gone all the way around. But the consistent thing is IT has provided that platform for me to do what I want. So it's just an endless field of opportunities. Like, I want to go be a specialist in this area, or maybe I want to be a specialist in that area. Most other fields don't give you that leeway. And I've been really fortunate to work for companies that have appreciated having a female presence as well. I mean, there's definitely been difficulties along the way, but I've stuck to it because it's always provided me an income, especially as a female in tech. Like, people are looking for us, that we're zebras. They want a female presence. We bring a different, I say attitude. We bring a different mindset to a team, a different way of looking at things.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally.
And it's a crazy path. And like, I know my career isn't stagnant now. Like, I know it's changing and good things are going to come. I don't know what. So
Yep.
I'm really hanging on for the ride. And when I talk to my best friend who's back in Chicago, she's like, adulting, sigh. And I'm like, dude, I'm not an adult. Like, I pay my bills, but I am not an adult. And that's the tough part. Like, I don't feel like I'm an adult. I just love what I do. Um, and my career has changed to the different type of environments in the type of companies I work for, but it's all been consistent with technology in the background. And it's been absolutely amazing.
And I think like, so there's so many ways I want to go after hearing that story. So I think like one that just shows like that story shows a lot of bravery and a lot of confidence in your decisions and trusting your gut and knowing what's right for you, because to turn around and sort of drop the dream of becoming a surgeon, and to pursue the IT path would have been, like you said, a huge decision. And what I really like throughout that story is you constantly saying how much being in the IT gave you, in the IT world gave you outside of your career, like opportunities to do what you love, opportunities to travel, you met great people, you had fun. And I feel like that is definitely what IT does for me too. Like somebody who I've worked with years ago when I first got into this space, we were catching up and she said, what's keeping you in IT? Like I kind of thought you would have left by now. And I was like,
Hmm.
oh no, it touches every aspect of the world. It touches every industry. And like you say, there's so many paths to go down. And I kind of feel like you say on the adulting thing, like I think IT can keep you young
Oh,
if you
absolutely. Or
if
age you
you
if you're working support and getting
yeah,
calls at 3 a.m. That
yeah.
ages you so fast.
Shout out to everyone doing
So
support right
fast.
now.
Oh, yeah. For anyone that does support, when I talk about what drove me to move country, a lot of things, but for me, it was it, living in the US. You get 2 weeks of vacation a year,
Yeah,
um, and that's not a lot of time. That's not a lot of time off work. And what got me was because I was running this large infrastructure, it looked great on the resume, right? I was up at all hours of the night. And one of the talks I gave on one of the Microsoft Ignite, the tour stops, actually gave on several stops. So one of the talks is about storing your data in Azure. And in that talk, I give the story of where I went on vacation for like 10 days, went to the Bahamas, turned off all my devices.
yep,
And for me, that's key. Like I need something outside of tech to like stop. And I went scuba diving for 10 days with my family, came back from my trip and walked in, saw my manager first thing in the morning, and he had been crying. And I'm like, are you okay? He goes, no, no, we've lost everything.
oh my
So
God.
in my talk, it's about how critical storage is to your organization. And we
Yep,
lost our SAN. I spent the next 36 hours at my desk being people bringing me food, coffee, Gatorade, like just in hordes, like, do not leave your desk, get this environment back up and running. We need you.
yep,
And we had so many outages in our environment, and that was due to storage. So it fits the talk, but I remember just being up at all hours doing late night maintenance. And I said, I can't do this anymore. So
mm,
that was my transition to this whole cloud thing. And it was Office 365 at the time, which we now call M365. But that was my breaking point in my career where I was like, I don't want to be doing support. There's got to be a better way. And there's got to be a better way than which our company was doing things, which has really
yeah,
also driven me into DevOps and that whole field. But it was that such pain. And I say pain, like tears of pain, like me falling asleep on my living room floor, trying to stay awake, fixing something because I was like changing positions from my desk to my floor to my dining table, like trying to move around the house up at 3 a.m. doing maintenance, and then
yeah,
having outages all the time, getting emails from like my C-levels at 3:30 in the morning. I'm like, why are you guys responding to emails at 3:30 in the morning?
yeah,
Um, that was my breaking point, and I needed a new way of life from that. And that was me coming to the UK. I was like, okay, 25 days of holidays, a different culture.
yeah.
Um, and that was it for me. Like that was I would say I had several meltdowns in my career. Like I'm like I can't do this all night thing anymore. That ages you. And sometimes you have to take these pain points in our careers and go, right, this isn't for me. Now, is it the career path,
Yep.
or is it the role? Is it something within the role? Is it the technology you're working with? And when I joined Microsoft, I took on a whole new transition. So I dealt with application stacks, but I didn't deal with the code as such. A little
Yeah.
bit, not much. I dealt with some automation, but nothing hardcore. So when I really started working in cloud, I moved more into application development at Microsoft and moved more into the dev side. And yes, I was starting to something new, but I had some background knowledge. So when people think about, oh, I don't want to start from scratch again, I'm like, well, are you starting from scratch? You're not,
Yes.
you're not like a small child learning to walk, you
Yeah.
can walk, you just need to learn to run.
Yeah.
And that's how I
Or
had to think
skip
of it.
or dance.
Yes, exactly. Dance and enjoy it. And you have to not be worried about not knowing enough in IT. And
Yeah.
everyone starts from a base point. Everyone's learning, and every day is a school day in IT, and that's what's kept me in it. So the thing I loved about medicine was helping people, but then
Mhm.
getting to see new things and troubleshoot and fix people and make people happy and healthy. In IT, you're fixing systems and computers and applications, and that's why I stayed in it, because it
Yeah.
wasn't the same, but you're still troubleshooting. You're
Yeah.
still, and I hope that what I'm delivering to customers is value and delivering something that changes the way a customer works and operates. And that I get so much satisfaction out of that. And that's what I
Human
needed to
beings,
find.
yeah, human beings we are programmed to solve problems. So people always talk about, don't think about getting to a point in life where you have no problems, because you will not be happy. Human beings are programmed to solve problems. So what you should always try and do is elevate your problems, have better problems. Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's like when people say, I don't have enough money, that's a problem. But you can get to a point where there is a such
Too
thing as
much.
too much money, and it doesn't necessarily bring happiness. It's a very simple example, but I think that in IT, it's just a playground for that. You're constantly solving problems. You're constantly looking how to do things better, faster, and deliver more value. And I think that's what always keeps it interesting. You said there as well about people being worried that, start from scratch or that they don't know enough. Your status quo in IT is that you don't know enough. You should always
Yeah,
be learning, especially now.
absolutely.
I think previously, yes, there was a point where you could be an expert in certain systems. You can maintain your expert levels, etc., and things would maybe not move as fast. But right now, you need to be an expert in learning. You need to be an expert in going and finding the right information or finding the right people. And you're so right. All the experience that you've had coming up to this point is so usable still,
It
especially when,
is.
especially I think we mentioned this as well. Like at the end of the day, customers are still making that transition to cloud. And
But they always think I'm so behind. And
yeah,
people, so there's a perception in the IT industry. There's many perceptions. One is you see the newest, latest, and greatest stuff come out, and it's
yeah,
cool. Like, don't get me wrong, it's cool. When we go talk to customers, they're like, we're so far behind. And I'm like, no, you're really not. You're actually doing really well. And they're like, really? And I'm like, well, you've got some of these basic principles instated, and you're doing this, you're doing that. And I really try to drive the positives,
yeah,
because they have made changes. But it's the same thing with humans. So as a human, and you're consuming technical knowledge, you think, I don't know enough about this topic. Like, I couldn't talk about it, or oh gosh, what if someone asked me a question about it? Like, there is so much knowledge out there. And I actually wrote a really good blog post, but never put it out into the internet because it was timing. But I wrote it about imposter syndrome.
right,
And I had started my role in CSE, where I currently sit today. And my team is cloud native, open source, Kubernetes heavy, and like hardcore developers. We have a guy on our team who's like the engineeriest engineer ever. I have Mr. Kubernetes on my team, and I have 5 other brilliant guys on my team. And I was nervous I won't be good enough. But
yeah,
my manager brought me in with a specific skill set. It was different, but good different. I have a massive knowledge of the Microsoft stack of technologies, of Azure, and I'm really good at architecture. I'm really good at these other things. And I gave a very different personality presence to the team. And that has really, really come about. But that scared me when I first took
mhm,
this role. I was like, do I take it? And I had spoken to several men, and actually I say this, I spoke to them. They came and spoke to me about having imposter syndrome. And I'm like, really? And these are people, I can't name names, but people that are like well known in certain areas of their fields. And I was like, wow, okay, so it happens in men too.
yeah,
And these guys are experts. But once you know, how much is in a field to learn, and then you start feeling imposter syndrome, it's because you have respect for how much there is to learn.
Yes.
It's when you don't have that respect, that's the problem. And I never published this blog post because I literally had, to be honest, all these other technical videos get launched at the same time, and I'm like, yeah, we're not, timing's bad. So I've never really posted it. But it's the reality of, like, when you're an expert in your field, you realize how much is out there and you're humbled by it.
Yeah.
And that's okay. But everyone has so many good skill sets to bring to a team, and it may not be technical, maybe soft skills, or it might be a different type of technical.
Mm-hmm.
um and it's just, through experience, I would just go in and I'm like, okay, this is me, this is who I am, and it's okay. And I don't mind learning every day. If I didn't learn every day, I wouldn't be in this field, like, at
Yeah.
all. I'd find something else to do.
On the topic of imposter syndrome, so I totally relate. I actually think that, so I wrote a blog when I first joined Dell, which I think was like for my first 6 months in Dell. And I very much, in the blog post, I'm just thinking back to it now, and I'm like, I'm on this amazing team full of these amazing guys. And I'm a bit like, why am I here?
Mm-hmm.
Now we're 9 months in, and I know why I'm on that team. Okay. Like I'm there, I'm delivering value. It's fine. But I totally can understand where you're coming from there. But so you told me a really cool story, actually, which is some around this topic about when you, so we were talking about, I think I shared with you my worry that I'm not tech enough to be in the tech community, and sort of some of the thoughts that I had about starting up this podcast. And you then spoke about when you joined that team,
Mm-hmm.
were you dev enough, and you had a few
Yes.
experiences, and one particular experience in particular, we'll just say that word again. And I wondered if you could share that story again. I think that's just a really cool story.
Sure. So it actually happened almost a year ago. I think it happened a year ago last week. So I got connected with a guy named Abel Wang, who's at Microsoft, who's a cloud developer advocate. It was a fluke how I met him, but great fluke. Like one of the best things that probably ever happened in my career in the last few years. And he invited me to come speak on Channel 9 on a topic. And I said, oh, there's this thing I really want to be known for. And I gave him my idea. He goes, come record it. So I flew out to Redmond. We had spoken a couple times over IM, whatever. And Abel's like, anything you need, shoot me a text. So I had prepped my demo for Channel 9. And Channel 9, for those of you that don't know it, is our like dev channel. And I was on the DevOps lab. So it's all about dev stuff. And I'm like, great, no pressure. I'm going to be presenting in front of a bunch of devs. Okay. And I've watched Channel 9 for years, and I'm like, I'm going to be that person on Channel 9. And wow, I literally pranced around the house for probably 3 months before going on Channel 9. Like my husband was like, can you stop prancing now? And I'm like, no, I'm going to be on Channel 9. But I was so excited to have an opportunity and open door. So I get to Redmond. I had prepped, and I also have the time zone change. So it's 8 hours time difference from the UK. So I like planned it so I wouldn't have jet lag. I'd be recording nice and fresh. I had one talk to give, and like 15, 20 minutes, that it was in length that it needed to be. I prepped about 100 times. Like I was stressed out. I was up at 4 a.m. prepping. And I get to the studio on the day, I meet Abel. He's like, well, we're early. We can get started early, because he gave us like a 2-hour slot and, to be ready. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And I was like, so my entire demo I'm doing in Bash, but I really prefer doing PowerShell, but I want to be more dev. I want to be more dev on camera, so I'm gonna do it in Bash. And he went, I'm a massive PowerShell fan. I'm like, really? And I sat there and I was like, okay, we're not gonna change anything in my demo. It is in Bash. We're gonna go with Bash, because developers work in Bash. And if you work in PowerShell, like it's not cool enough, but I love PowerShell. So I had everything ready. I went and recorded. It went swimmingly well. Abel and I had a great time, and we had so many giggles during the recording. It was amazing. And we're sitting there and he goes, hey, let's get lunch with Jeffrey Snover. And I'm like,
wow.
Okay. So filler, for anyone who doesn't know who Jeffrey Snover is, he's the creator of PowerShell. So I had done my recording on Channel 9 in Bash with another PowerShell fan. And then I was going to have lunch with Jeffrey Snover. And I just sat there at lunch, and Abel goes, so tell Jeffrey about your recording today. And I was like, oh my God, head in hands at lunch going, yeah, so I did my recording in Bash. But that was the point where I said, PowerShell is cool. And
Yep.
I'm not going to I'm not going to bend on that. Like, that's what I love. I love working in PowerShell. I love automating with PowerShell. There's so many use cases. It's not the only language I work in, but I said, it is cool enough. And now with the release of PowerShell 7.0, like it's gotten a lot of like embracement from like the open source community, the Linux community. So I'm not ashamed of it, but it took a bit of embarrassment and that whole day happening for me to just be like, this is really happening. This is life telling me, like, just be you. Like, don't be afraid to be you. And I'm
Yeah.
usually not afraid to be me, but yeah. And I think I work with devs all the time, and I will promote PowerShell hardcore. Like within my team, like we were working on a customer project recently, and I'm like, oh, you can do that in PowerShell. Like, oh, they're like trying to discuss like all the ways they can do something. I'm like, oh, here's a PowerShell script done. And they're like, oh, so I've actually made someone's life easier with
Yeah.
technology I love and
Yeah.
simplified a customer project. So I won't backtrack on that. I rarely work in Bash. I don't really care to. If it happens, great. But I work all in PowerShell when and where possible now, especially with like Azure CLI and all that good stuff. So yeah, so that was my lesson of why you stay true to what you love in your technology stack.
Yeah, just staying true to yourself, right? Whether it's the technology you use or the things that you like or the things that you're interested in, staying true to you because, like you say, you were brought on that team to
Mm-hmm.
bring this different perspective, this different way of looking at things, different skills, etc. And I think that's just a perfect example of kind of the imposter syndrome setting in, you trying to be more dev, maybe more tech, and then being like, do you know what, actually, what I bring to the party and bring to the table is perfectly fine.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people, when they see you do a video or they see you talk, they don't see anything behind that. They're just there to learn from you, and everyone comes in a different place. So whenever I try to do a talk, like when I was on Microsoft Ignite the tour, I had some like level 100 talks. They weren't level 100, but yeah, kind of like intro to whatever, right? I always try to add extra bits because there's always going to be someone in the crowd that knows everything you're speaking about. And so I try to add some tidbits on. People come up to me like, I didn't know you could do that with that. I didn't know you could do that with that. I love being able to teach people new things. And you have to be open. You have to envelop a growth mindset because even when I'm working with my team now and I can do some PowerShell, like, oh, actually, we can do it a better way this way. Okay, great. You're like, I'm always open to a new way. They're always open to a new way. And you kind of test whose ways easier sometimes. And you do have to stay true to yourself in IT. And I think that comes from all levels as well. So you mentioned like personal level as well. Like I have things that are important to me in my life. Like I love what I do for a living, but it is not me. It's not what I do outside of work. I literally work to pay my bills, and I do love it. And I like doing what I do, but if I could afford to not work, I would probably not, and I think most of us would agree. So I think everyone has reasons why they work. They're paying for a house, they're paying for their family, they're paying for kids to go to college, or paying for vacations, and you have to honor those things. And a lot of some of the talks I've given at like the women in tech talks, I've had a lot of women come up to me and go, how I want to do this and I want to do that. And I'm like, then do it. Like even if it's something small, do it because it's your passion. Having an income allows you to say, I work during the day, I want to take an hour for myself at night, do it. It means go out and buy yourself a pen and paper, or use that money and set up a blog site, or learn a new language. I've been working and learning, and mostly working in Go, but trying to get more proficient at it. So that's been my spare time and my expansion of knowledge. And I do things outside of work. I do triathlon because I'm crazy. But I love it. I love it. It keeps me busy. And when I'm not at work, it's something completely different to shift my brain into another focus and take care of me. And that's really important. And, I'm not my job and I love it, but yeah, I need something else outside of work.
Yeah, I hear you. I definitely feel that. And I suppose that can bring us on to talking about the COVID-19 situation, because COVID-19 has definitely, especially, certainly for me anyway, and I'm sure that this probably resonates with quite a lot of people, is that there is a big risk that work can become your everything because you haven't necessarily been able to do the other things that you want to do or spend the time that you would normally spend doing other things. It's just not been as easy. So for instance, I started this podcast. You could classify that as still to do with work. I don't know. And I've started trying to blog, and along that path, I've started to learn so many other different things. but I have had to make a conscious effort to put away my phone, switch off, read, just find other things outside of work and home to do during lockdown, because I think it's so easy now to work more than ever before, because it's a distraction, it passes the time, and it's easy to get sucked into that. So I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about how COVID and the lockdown has impacted your job. What was, what are if there are any major differences, and just kind of some of the things that you've been implementing to survive lockdown.
Survive is a good word. And I've done a lot of talks at like women in tech groups about work-life integration. So a lot of people, when you're going to an office before, you're like, oh, I'm just trying to balance out my kids, my life, my whatever. And there's a lot of talk about work-life balance. And I really tell people, let's talk about work-life integration. So change the phrasing a bit, because if we're balancing, we're trying to give equal parts to something, right? And it's just not going to work. You can't have your life and work and
then all your
plates are going to drop.
All your energy goes into trying to balance rather than into where it should be going, for instance.
Yes, absolutely. And you just get worn out. And for me, I worked from home a lot before. I was traveling 2 to 3 weeks a month as well. So when I was home, I was home, and it was pretty good. So a lot of people weren't used to working from home. And I've always spoken to people about setting boundaries. It is too easy to say, oh, I'm up at 7 a.m. I'm just going to work till like 8 p.m. at night. Set some standard working hours for yourself. And I would say I'm also bad at it. Like, I'm not perfect at it, but I'm just like, oh, I'm just going to finish this one thing. And sometimes I'm into a project and it's okay. But other times it's like, right, nope. So this week I'm super strict on my hours this week. Really, really strict. But always when I talk about integrating my life and I talk about all this triathlon stuff I do, I make a point, I put a blocker in my diary to say, right, lunchtime, I'm going for a run. Now, for a lot of people prior to COVID, they were commuting to an office. So I always say to people, now that you've gotten that time back, what are you doing with it? Like, are you reading a book, whatever, pick up some really good habits and hobbies. And in the UK, especially, people have been out on bikes. Families have been out on bikes immensely. And that's been amazing.
I bought a bike. Me and my little brother have been, so I bought a hybrid bike and he got a mountain bike.
Awesome.
And we've been going to like a forest nearby and just like going around the tracks and stuff. And I've been loving it. It's awesome as well, because I'm getting to spend time with my little brother, which is, it's difficult to, get his attention and do something that he wants to do. But that's been awesome.
I think so many people found that, and it's things like evening walks, and I think we're all fed up of cooking at home, so I don't even want to touch on that one, and doing dishes. But legitimately we were really fortunate in the UK to have an allocated time outside, right? So I was out cycling, I was out running, and I would alternate my days, and I kept something for myself to look forward to every day. And I think for people, it's really important to set those boundaries of your working hours, but give yourself something to look forward to. And I would also say a lot of days, if you catch me on a normal day, any day ending in Y, hair's up in a ponytail, like no makeup, and I'm sitting at my desk working in a hoodie. It's a little warm for a hoodie today, but I'm super laid back when I work, but I think a lot of people struggle. So I always tell people to have a routine in the morning, whether that is getting dressed, doing your hair, makeup, or for men, brushing your hair and your teeth might be a step some days. I get it. Like you get into a funk in lockdown, and we're starting to really come out of it now. But having some boundaries and really enveloping those new habits is really important. I mean, for me, I kind of continued on as I was doing. I work remote with my customers all the time anyways. I'm on Teams calls all day with work. The only difference is our video was on all the time. And I'm like, oh, okay. And you have people's kids and families, and like everything can go on in the background that could possibly happen does. And that's okay. It's a new way of working.
Yeah, it's interesting, the shift to video actually in meetings. I found it really great when I started at Dell last September. I found it really hard being a remote worker, joining a team that was spread across the globe, trying to build relationships with people and figure out who I needed to speak to and meet within Dell. And the plan was obviously to be doing a bit of traveling with this role, which is not happening now. And I definitely found the whole switch to using videos, it breaks down barriers, I think, between people, and you tend to have a lot more connected conversations, I'd say. And I have really liked it, although there are some days, like I've been on a bit of a roller coaster in lockdown. So I've gone from, I'm going to do this podcast and I've been so productive and I've learned loads of new stuff, to then, oh my God, I haven't been outside in 4 days. So then I got into this habit of getting up in the morning, doing 10,000 steps before work. I did that for about 4 or 5 weeks. I was like, yes, I am a new person. Finally, at the age of 33, I am a morning person. And then, oh my God, this is week 4. It's week 2 of no morning walks, and it's week 4 of kind of letting everything go. So I definitely need to get out of my funk and get back into the sort of healthy habits and routines. But it's not easy, I don't think.
It's really tough. And I think, so whenever you think of, what is it, dry October that everyone likes to do, and dry January?
Yeah.
It takes 30 days to build a habit. Okay, great. But some of the habits may not always be beneficial. So a lot of people will do like dry January and they'll go running every day for like 30 days. You go from 0 to a lot, you're putting a lot of stress on your body. And I think something you have to think about is, what are your stressors in your environment? So for me, like, I worked from home, that was fine. But a stressor for me was having a stepchild here every other week. Like, that wasn't my life before. And I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, and then having my husband home working.
That's a big change.
These are like whole new people. Like, who did I marry? You know, like seeing them at work. So I hope he doesn't watch this. But it's you can introduce burnout. Like, it's great to have goals, but also, like, when I do my triathlon training, I cycle my training. So I do like a 3-week build, if you think of like a step. So like week 1's here, week 2's here, and I increase each week, and then week 4 drops, and I let myself recover. And I don't drop the habit, I just decrease the intensity, and I give myself that. And I think it's also important to just say, maybe I need to cycle my effort a little bit, and you know, like, plan it out, and just then, okay, take a chill, or more importantly, listen to your body. Give yourself permission to say, you know what, today, not productive. And I think that's okay. Like, I've been finishing up a customer project, and I get tasks added to our sprints and things to do and that I didn't expect. And I'm like, okay. And it's felt like Groundhog Day, but with work to do. And I'm like, I know I should get this done today, but I would sit there and go, is anyone going to die? No.
Yeah.
You know, and it just, my head would kind of space out. So I think it's really, really important to forgive yourself for those moments, let go, and say, you know what, I actually need to stop, because everyone has hit burnout. Most people have kids, or if you don't have kids, you're alone. I have a lot of friends that live alone, and they're just like, I'm miserable because I can't have human contact. Like, what do I do? So everyone is in a very different situation, but everyone's feeling it. So give yourself permission and say, right, okay, I maybe pushed it a little too much, or, you know, need a break from it, and just get back into a healthy cycle. But give yourself permission to say it's okay. I mean, I knocked out a couple blogs last week, and then this week, and I'm like, I like, this week I set myself a goal of just writing 1 blog. I'm like, 1 blog, because I have, you know, this going on. I'm doing a couple other recordings, and I have some other project work to do. And I'm like, you know, 1 blog. That's all I'm going to do this week. That's it.
I think
that's okay.
A really key point there is forgiving yourself. I am so hard on myself. It's unreal. Everybody mentions it all the time. I've definitely began to realize it a lot more and become more aware of it in the last like good number of years. But I still fall into that habit, and I'm very much like all or nothing. I don't give myself any, you know, leeway. And but I think in lockdown I've learned to properly forgive myself for not being super productive all the time, a lot more than I've ever done before. So there are some days where I just accept that today is not a 110% Lisa day. Like, it's not one of my normal days. And you know what? That is okay, because I know that will come back. And actually, the sooner I forgive myself, and the sooner I stop stressing out, and the sooner I stop beating myself up, and I rest, then it'll come back. I mean, I have no excuses for my morning walks and not doing them right now. They definitely just kind of
don't be so hard on yourself. Like, there you go. But you're
okay,
doing it again.
I'm not self-aware. Scrap that. That's Yeah, so true. And I think, like you say as well, like everyone has such different circumstances in lockdown. Everyone's struggling in one way or another. Whether you've got kids at home and you're having to homeschool, whether you live alone like me and you're, beginning to speak to your cat just a little bit too much. Like I keep saying to my friends, I cannot wait until lockdown ends so that I can self-isolate on my own terms again. Yeah. Because
Yes.
because they call me a hermit and I do like to spend a lot of time by myself. I like Lisa time. But there's a difference between me choosing to do that and me not being allowed to go and see my friends and family.
Yeah.
And it's definitely, I think the key message here is set boundaries. Don't be too hard on yourself. Forgive yourself for when I call it the roller coaster of lockdown, when you're in a
Yep.
slump, yeah, definitely.
Well, you think about it before when you used to, I used to travel. So I built my downtime into my flights. Like I would sleep on a plane. If I didn't have work to do and I would say, right, work's been really busy.
Yep.
I'm going to sleep on my flight, or I'm going to divide my time up a bit and allow myself to sleep or watch a movie if it was a long haul flight. Like that's okay. Like I actually used my flights as my downtime. So I would work really, really hard, get stuff done. I was like, well, I have access to internet, or I did, but I didn't. I just
Yeah.
didn't on a plane. And I used that time to have me time, whether it be reading a book, watch a movie, or work on something that didn't require internet on my laptop. Absolutely. That was built into my schedule a bit. So even though I was traveling a lot, like I had the downtime, I also had the evenings where if I wasn't seeing a customer or at an event or seeing a customer, I could get to bed at a reasonable time. Other nights I was seeing a customer every single night, and that was really tough. But you think to when like you're commuting to work, even if it's a 5-minute walk to an hour train ride, like you had a break, you did something,
Yeah.
you stared at a wall, you read a book, caught up on the news, you play games on your phone, whatever it is. And now we've gained back so much time. But I think also before lockdown, trying to connect with a lot of my friends, everyone's like, I'm so busy, I'm so busy, I'm so busy. And
Yeah.
we all seemed really stressed out. Now we're all like, what do we do? Like we're all at a loose end. I think it's been a really great thing to have that like forced downtime in the
Yeah.
world to say, maybe we are too busy. And now I've been busy with work at home, but again, setting those hard boundaries for myself. And I'm like, wow, it's sunny out today. I'm going to go sit outside and eat lunch,
Yeah.
and finding those pockets. And I have, and I think it's really forced everyone to say, slow down, like
Yeah.
just slow down.
Stripped us all back down to the very basics of what we need in our lives to be happy, I think. And like you say, friends, etc., being busy, I think this has given you time to reflect on, where am I spending my priorities? Am I giving my friends and my relationships enough focus?
Yep.
Or am I taking them for granted because I assume they'll always be there and I'm focusing too much on work, etc. And I definitely think that this has been a great opportunity to do that. I kind of said the other week, I'm pretty sure I tweeted out last week, like, I can't quite tell whether the world is falling apart or we're going through some kind of spiritual awakening. Like,
Yeah.
I think it remains to be seen, but I am hopeful that everyone comes out of this with having gained something, whether it's perspective or being able to forgive themselves for not, doing everything at once, or being able to really reevaluate what they're doing with their life or where they want to go in their career. Yeah, I'm hopeful.
Absolutely.
We'll see.
Absolutely. And I've spoken to a lot of people that even that I work with are just like, oh, I'm in a rut. And I'm like, okay. So I mentor a few people as well. And I'm like, well, what's going on? And they're talking about it. I said, okay, well, change your focus and stop focusing. Because, the thing is, because we're at home and we're in this, I'm in Groundhog Day. I hope everyone else is mode. It's like, I got this project, focus, focus, focus. I'm like, hold on, take a step back, pick something and work on it. So for me, I have a few projects I'm working on, can't talk about just yet, but things that interest me and drive me and keep me interested in what I do. So the customer project's been slogging on and I'm like, okay, I need something else. And the people I
Yeah,
mentor, I'm like, right, one person's focusing on soft skills, one's kind of focusing on a different direction in their career. And I think it's a hard time because a lot of people have been made redundant or furloughed,
yeah,
and they don't have a career. But I also have friends that have picked up new roles. Like I had a friend that came back from Asia I think he was over in Asia for like a year or 9 months. And he's really just picked up a new career in IT recently. And he's like, I'm starting from the ground up and I'm really excited. He's like, April, send me some resources. I'm like, absolutely. So, and it's people have been resetting themselves, and it's really tough right now for a lot of people, but it's a great time to think about what's important and to go forward. And a lot of industries are going to be hurt. You know, I have friends that were in events industries. What are they going to do? And, you know, some are older, so they're kind of like at retirement age and like, well, I'm just going to retire. And some are younger, and I'm like, you have another passion, pursue it. And this is a great time to do that. And it's tough. But it's a kick in the butt. It's kind of like when I was made redundant / forced out of my role, it was like, that was the kick in the butt I needed to make a life change. It wasn't on I wasn't ready for it. It wasn't on my terms. So there were a lot of frustrations and tears and anger and everything else, but it has paid off, and I get it. I get why it's happened now. Looking back, hindsight's a beautiful thing. But sometimes we need a kick in the butt, you know?
Yeah.
And this has been a good opportunity.
Sometimes you just need that thing to happen to give you the the sink or swim. So you can think about changing, you can think about where you want to go all the time, but sometimes you need that. And I do think this has been a big like turn it off and turn it on again, like reset on the world, hands on everything. So I'm excited to see what the new, as everyone keeps saying, the new normal is.
It will be interesting. It'll be interesting. All the events, Microsoft just recently took Microsoft Build online completely. It took about 2 months, revamped it, put it online, huge success. And all of our events for the rest of the year, calendar year, will be online. So it's going to be a massive change in the world. And it's going to be interesting. It really is. So I think we all just have to kind of sit back, be ready for it, and be a little bit flexible as well. You know, we all have to be a bit flexible. And if you wake up and have a bad day, that's fine. Have a duvet day. Lie in. I did a couple weeks ago. I had a Saturday. I didn't leave the sofa. It was amazing. I was just exhausted.
Absolutely. You don't need to be doing everything every day in lockdown. Absolutely.
True.
Well, this has been an awesome chat, April. Thank you so much for joining, and thanks so much for sharing about your how you got into tech story.
Thank you for having me. It's been a lot of fun, Lisa. Really enjoyed it.
Cool. And I will speak to you soon.
All right.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.